Arcos the Faithless serves the Alpha Legion during the 41st millennium. A veteran of the Long War, Arcos would serve as a captain of the 20th Legion during the Great Crusade as a loyal Astartes until his descent into damnation during the Horus Heresy. Following the path of the arch-traitor Horus Lupercal, Primarch Alpharius Omegon would appoint Arcos as their equerry during the Great Civil War. Fleeing into the Eye of Terror, with the fall of Alpharius at the Battle of Pluto and end of the War Master's tyranny during the Siege of Terror, Arcos would continue the works of his Primarch and assume the mantle of Chaos Lord. Leading his own warband, the Faithless, and commanding his own despoiler-class battleship, Anarchy's Heart, Arcos has spent much of the following millennia raiding Imperial shipping lanes in the vicinity of the Eye of Terror. Spreading sedition, rumor, and provocation throughout Imperial strongholds, Arcos supplies weapons and supplies to cultist uprisings to further spread chaos across the stars. Masquerading as loyalist space marines to better infiltrate Imperial worlds, the Faithless act behind enemy lines as saboteurs to enable Arcos' meticulous strategies to unfold. Among the most cunning and devious warriors in the galaxy, Arcos rarely fights in the midst of battle and prefers to orchestrate his mortal pawns to fight for his own purposes. A master of subterfuge and espionage, Arcos has been attributed the title of Scion of Alpharius for his immense prowess as a tactician, strategist, and manipulator. Intervening during the Siege of Vrax, Arcos' 17-year-long campaign of attritional warfare would harry the loyalist defenders of the Forge World of Vrax Prime and dispatch his men to reinforce the Vraxisian renegades wresting control of the planet. Annihilating entire regiments of the Death Corps of Krieg while simultaneously infiltrating the starport of Vrax Prime, the Faithless disguised as loyalist space marines would meet with the Apostle Cardinal Astra, Zaphon, and pledge their support in exchange for his submission to the ruinous powers. Training the renegade militia forces and aiding their might to the defense of the starport, the Faithless would confront the forces of the Dark Angels chapter, led by their Supreme Grand Master, Azrael, during 821.M41. For 8 days, the Space Marines would battle, until Azrael would order the final assault to end the war. Deploying the 1st, 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 9th Companies, the Dark Angels would overwhelm the mortal defenders of the spaceport, with Azrael at their spear tip. Springing a trap upon the Dark Angels, the Faithless would use their allies as bait before encircling Azrael's forces. Toppling the Dark Angel's standard, the Faithless would observe Azrael racing through enemy lines to reach his fallen brother, Anmael, to once more raise their banner aloft. Fighting over the standard, despite the Faithless' resolve, Azrael would best them in combat and once more raise his chapter's sacred banner. Arcos would personally duel Azrael as the Supreme Grand Master fought his nemesis one-handed as he refused to lower his chapter's banner. Gaining the upper hand, Arcos would injure the Keeper of Truth and disarm him. Still clutching Anmael's banner, Azrael's life would be saved by his Deathwing Terminators, led by Interrogator Chaplain Belphegor. Striking with his Crosium Arcanum, Belphegor would damage Arcos' power armor when attending to the Supreme Grand Master. The Dark Angels would hunt down the remaining Faithless, and despite losing 200 Battle Brothers, drive the Alpha Legion warband from Vrax. Returning to their conquest once more during 822.M41, the Faithless would broadcast a transmission to all Chaos warbands in the sector, rallying them to join them in their attempt to once again claim Vrax Prime. The Cornate Chaos Lord, Zuffor, would heed the call to arms and lead his Skulltakers warband to join the Faithless under orders from the War Master of the Black Legion, Abaddon the Despoiler. Subjugating all lesser warbands to his rule, fighting among Vrax Prime, Zuffor would make a deal with Arcos due to his alliance with the Vraxian Cardinal, Zaphon. For the Faithless' independence, Arcos would allow Zuffor to capture Zaphon to subjugate to his will, and with the pact made, the Faithless would remain true to their word. Sacrificing Zaphon in the name of Khorne, Zuffor and his Cornate Berserkers would turn the Cardinal's palace into a slaughterhouse, and with their bloodlust sated, a new threat would arrive in system. The Ordo Malleus of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition, aided by the Angels of Absolution, would descend upon Vrax at the behest of Supreme Grand Master Azrael. Interrogator Belphegor would be dispatched to aid the Angels of Absolution, and alongside the Inquisitor Hector Rex, would resolve to capture Arcos. Assaulting the Basilica of St. Leonis, Belphegor would lead the stern guard of his own chapter's Deathwing Company to apprehend their charge. Supported by their unforgiven kin, the stern guard searched the Basilica, capturing and slaying several faithless Astartes. Fatally wounded during the battle, Arcos would survive his encounter with the Angels of Absolution until Belphegor would once more confront the Scion of Alfarius. Driving the Faithless from the Citadel, the stern guard would cut down the Faithless as Belphegor's Crosium crashed into Arcos' skull. Capturing Arcos at the cost of the life of Master Yafnir of the Angels of Absolution and many of his kin, their prisoner would be transported for questioning within the Dark Angels' fortress monastery, The Rock. To all accounts, Arcos' deeds end here, his imprisonment by the Dark Angels and any secrets he may utter kept closely guarded by the Dark Angels' inner circle and their interrogator, chaplains.